Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Feinberg, thank you for your willingness to serve in this very important role. I want to follow up to some of the comments the senator from Oklahoma, Senator Mullen, made earlier in response to Senator Kaine calling out Putin as a bully and this administration's unwillingness to state the obvious. Senator Mullen said that Senator Kaine was spewing 100% mistruths constantly, essentially calling him a liar. He was referring specifically to the Russian president, Vladimir Putin. And in response, Senator Mullen mentioned Assad, Israel, Hamas, Houthis, Iran, hostages, and Dr. Death. I'm pretty sure he did not mention Putin by name. I think the appropriate response would be to say that Putin was, in fact, a bully, but he didn't say that. I think it's instructive that he would not even mention Vladimir Putin by name. Putin's a bully, and I'm not hearing that from this administration. I do hear it from some people on the other side of the aisle, and I appreciate that. More people need to get off the sidelines on this issue. And I think it's clear to many of us that Donald Trump blew up the Western alliance this past week. 80 years of an alliance, gone. It's disturbing. Mr. Feinberg, earlier you said execution would be your job, and it's part of the job. But I don't think it's all of the job. You're going to often find yourself in the room. And when things like, as an example, the SecDef a few days ago said, when asked whether or not Russia invaded Ukraine, he said it's complicated. It's not complicated. Russia did, in fact, invade our ally, Ukraine. So, Mr. Feinberg, would you agree that you have a role beyond just execution in offering some advice when you hear things that are just fundamentally inaccurate?
I do think the deputy should at times give his view on policy, for sure. I think it should be behind closed doors and not in public. And I think it's important for the deputy to understand that he, regardless of what his opinion may or may not be, that ultimately the secretary and the president will decide what the policies are, and it's important to execute it.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Mr. Feinberg, did Russia invade Ukraine?
Well, going to my behind closed doors statement a second ago, I'll just say this.
They moved tanks and troops and armored personnel carriers across the Ukrainian border. It's a pretty simple question.
Yeah. Well, here's how, if I may, I'd like to
If
say,
you would ask the chairman of this committee if Russia invaded Ukraine, I'm pretty sure, the Republican chairman, I'm pretty sure I would know the answer.
I got you. However, there's a very tense negotiation going on now. It's important for American interests. I don't have
Mr. Feinberg, we've got to live in the real world here.
Yeah, but I don't.
I mean, things happen, and it's obvious to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And I think it's obvious to Europe right now that we just blew up an alliance. And for us not to be able to say an obvious fact it doesn't help a negotiation.
Well, what I was trying to say, Senator, is I don't think some person who's not informed on this, not involved in discussions, should make statements public that could undermine what the president and the secretary's intent is. I do have confidence that President Trump is very strong at negotiation, has a plan, and that he will find a good outcome for America.
Mr. Feinberg, people that are good at negotiations do not give up their two strongest negotiating points before the negotiation starts, which was membership in NATO and land that was taken away from the Ukrainians. So I do not agree with that he's a good negotiator. He actually, this week, has been a pretty bad negotiator.
Well,
I want to make sure.
Actually, President Trump, you know, his policy has always been peace through strength. and he is very cunning on how he proceeds and how he approaches these. He's the first person to ever bring Russia to the table where we are close, potentially, to a settlement. So I'd like to see how it works out. I have confidence it will work out favorable to America.
Well, I do not share your optimism.
Understood.
Here. I mean, this is, we went into a negotiation, giving up the two biggest points, and that is very troubling. And at the same time, in the same week, we blew up an 80-year alliance. And some of my Republican colleagues have a hard time even stating the obvious, that Russia did, in fact, invade Ukraine 3 years ago. I know, Mr. Feinberg, I know you pay attention to the news. And I imagine if I asked you this question 3 years ago, I'm pretty sure I know what the answer would be. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Kelly. I recognize myself. Mr. Feinberg, thank you for being here.